Hello everybody, it's decklist with another video. We are playing again a Sultai Crabwine with Urbor Lurgov, so Sultai Gorif Crabwine, and the deck's performing really good. So last video on my channel, like maybe a week ago, I went 4-1. Didn't play it from then. Played a lot of Hollow One in the meantime, and now these strategies are pretty similar, but this one is. This one, I don't know which one is stronger, more powerful overall. They are both strategies are very strong, and the fair decks really have problems dealing with these effects. And I think just both of these strategies, either my Temur Hollow One list and this Sultai with both with using Urberg Lurgov are just very good performers at the moment. The overall meta game in Modern just don't pack enough Graveyard Hate at the moment because Living End is no more dominant deck and people use moderate Graveyard Hate for the Breach decks, Murktide type of decks, but that's definitely not enough to face this kind of deck, which is going just full on Graveyard and doing some nasty stuff with Graveyard, and people are just not prepared for it. And I'm also playing Force of Negation in the main, which helps a lot dealing with any kind of hate and any kind of combo decks, which this deck may be not fast enough to race in some occasions. So now you have Force of Negation in the main, helping you get that extra turn you need to win with your chills, Vengevines, and other stuff, of course. Okay, so cards that overperformed for the last league I played were definitely Subtlety on the sideboard and Witterbloom Command. Witterbloom Command was just so good. So many occasions. I would definitely like to fit this card in the main, but I think Force of Negation is definitely better in the current metagame. But when Witterbloom Command is good, it's very good. And just being able to destroy the Graveyard Hate piece, plus getting the land into your hand for the Hedron Crab and milling yourself for 3, just so relevant. It's just amazing. I don't know, really good card, really good sideboard card, I think. And it's a very nice additional Graveyard Hate. It kills Gravedigger's Cage, Soul Guide Lanterns, whatever, Rest in Pieces. It just doesn't kill Leyline of the Void, but that's why we have Havar Might, of course, and Force of Negation. Sorry, not Force, but Havar Might. And yeah, so I think so. Last time when you saw this deck on my channel, I played 2 Glimpse of Nature and 3 Grave Crawlers. I wasn't very thrilled with the Grave Crawlers. I think 2 is a better number in the main than 3. Don't want to draw them that much. I really want to just have occasionally 1 to cast from my graveyard to trigger the Vengevine. That's it. I think 2 is a good number, and Rotting Rats is definitely a more important card for this deck, so I want that card definitely as a 3 off. So I removed 2 Glimpse of Nature, 1 Gravecrawler to add 3 Force of Negation in the main, and Force has been doing a decent job. A lot of spells, a lot of decks currently in the format playing very powerful 3-4 mana non-creature spells, just um, against this kind of deck without any other interaction. It can just be life-saving, game-winning, and especially in those game ones when you don't have other solutions. Also, sometimes you just counter their draw card, like or Expedition Map against Throne Coffers, or like Eldritch Evolution against Yagmoth or Indomitable Creativity. All of these spells are just escape shift. All of these spells are really game defining, and the Force of Negation can really buy you that extra turn you need to finish your opponent off. And it's also a good way to get rid of the prized Amalgam and Archamoeba Wonder you have stuck in your hand, and really don't plan to don't plan to cast them really. So you only have three rotting reds in your deck to get rid of the amalgam in your hand. So I think Force of Negation is a good inclusion. Also, Subtlety could be decent. For example, if you're in the meta when everybody's playing Endurance, it can be pretty good. Like Yagmoth and Amulet's Titan occasionally play Endurance even in the main, so that's kind of option. And I'm really satisfied with the looks of the sideboard. The Leylands of the Void have been great both in the Sultai and the Temur Hollowine. Leylands are great hate against Yagmoth, against opponents' graveyard decks, against Rakdos camps. So very good card for this deck. And it's even better in this deck because you can actually cast it on a turn 4. In this league, it was also very relevant against the scales, stops their modular abilities. Fatal Push was a good inclusion for this league. I was able to, I boarded it just once again or twice, I'm not sure. Against Yagmoth, I was able to kill Yagmoth with it and finish off my opponent in the trophy match, in the last match, sorry. Witterbloom Command was very good against Tron, as I remember, Will just and against some other matchup, it was just it just definitely overperformed. Subtlety countered endurance a few times. It was very good. Also, really satisfied with the performance. And have I might, of course, best possible artifact enchantment kit that could be made for this type of deck. 1 mana, gaining you 2 life in the process, exiling spell so they can't return it to their hand in any way. And just so good. Again, I finished this league 4-1. So 2 leagues in a row finishing 4-1 with total score with this list 8-2. And this is really good performance. Very good performance for both of these graveyard-based decks. So maybe just the graveyard-based decks are very good, very well positioned at the moment, and maybe just I just found the correct build for the current metagame. As I think just Secret Keeper and Glimpse of Nature were weakest links in the in a usual lists. Also addition of Urborg Lurgoyf, Force of Negation were just so very good, and some sideboard inclusions too were very important. And I think I'm very close to the list. I uh, I will settle on as my final brew and my final list, and uh, very close. So just have a few cyber slots still thinking about, and uh, but our deck is performing very well. I think it's very easy to do the 5-0 in the league with it. If you are into the graveyard strategies, I think now it's a very good time to play these decks on the MTGO. And we are just going to go through some games now, see the gameplay. Okay, somewhat ideal. Turn 1 gaze. Uh, have a Force of Negation protection in the hand. A turn 1 gaze, finding the fetch into turn 2 Hedron Crab, finding can be very good, obviously. This was my opponent was playing Dredge. Just wanted to slow them down. Maybe I should have waited for their cathartic reunion, but I decided to do it immediately to just kind of start doing the stuff first. Milling myself, putting creatures on the field. They went for the reunion, didn't have any dredge spells in hand, so I milled Wonder, which was very relevant. Put Urborg Lurgoyf on the field, draw into the fetch, mill some more cards, and this was very good. And this was my plan. Just kind of raised them with this Urber Glurgoyf through the air, and I got my opponent down on 9 life and attacked with Urber Glurgoyf for lethal 9 damage on turn 4. This is why this guy is amazing. How would you win this game otherwise than without having this Urber Glurgoyf in your deck? It would be impossible. And it's not just for the dredge matchup to get the Urber Glurgoyf being so huge with Wonder. It's just so good, makes you want to play additional Wonder. But yeah, okay, so on the draw, definitely a lot harder. I didn't. I had a decent hand without any real graveyard hate. Decided to keep it. They're playing first, but both of our decks can do some pretty nasty stuff. So a lot of this is depending on the luck, definitely. I just decided to go for the geese turn 1. It's often one of the best plays. So they go for the Narcomoeba, getting back Amalgam. Then played the other reunion. Got the Dark Blast. Got a bit lucky here. Dark Blast into find, the 2 mana Dredge creature. Then with found the Stinky Imp. So got a bit lucky, I think, with that blast, and it was a good one. I played 2 of my suppliers, now had flying, and I was able to bring back Vengevine from the yard, had the Urborg Lurgoyf, another supplier for the next turn, mill some more cards, also bringing back 2 Vengevines, 2 Amalgams, but my opponent just got too much stuff on the field, and 2 Creeping Chills kind of sealed the game. They were just on 13 cards in library, and I was able to do a lot of powerful stuff too. But I boarded out my Creeping Chills, so I wasn't able to get back on life, and 2 amalgams returning. My amalgams just weren't returning on time from the graveyard, and yeah, I had to concede there. That was lethal. Okay, so you will see that game 3 was definitely quickest game of all the games. Okay, I draw a card, have a great hand, gaze into supplier, just perfect hand. My opponent mulligans to 4. I start with 2 Leyland Voids, and my opponent concedes on turn 1. That's it. Okay, so definitely Leyline, strongest card against the Dredge. They just have a really hard time dealing with this. When you draw 2, it's over, as you saw. Okay, so game 2 playing a second. My opponent plays the Hierarch and Blooming Marsh, that means they're on Yagmoth, so it's pretty safe to play turn 1 Hedron Crab. They really don't have almost any removal except for the Grist. So I was able to jam Hedron Crab immediately, start doing some powerful stuff here, milled into 2 Amoebas, and I had my plan was to again to jam the Urber Glurgoyf and try to make it as huge as possible to start attacking with it. Hopefully, try to find the Wonder again. Okay, my opponent played everything they had. I mill 6 again, growing my Urber Glurgoyf as big as possible. Got play the reds, discard amalgam, bring back 1 amalgam, this amalgam triggering another amalgam. So didn't have 2 creatures to trigger this Vengevine. But it was okay. They had Blood Artist, but they were in a very unfavorable situation. So 1 amalgam triggered here, and this one triggered another one to bring back on my turn. Of course, top deck Yavmok for my opponent is win in any moment, but yeah, it's not so easy to top deck it. And I played my Goyf here. I played my Goyf here, and I don't know what happened. My opponent didn't block, and that was it. Okay. or they conceded on their turn, whatever. I'm not sure. Okay, so that was it. That was game one against Yagmut. Let's see game two. Urbergurgov was again a very strong performance by Goev. So with this kind of hands, I always leave Hedron Crab for turn two. So turn two, Hedron Crab into fetch, milling 6 cards, playing supplier, a very high chance of finding the Vengevine. Think that's the optimal play. So I definitely decide to go for it. My opponent is on Yagma, so they're playing Endurance. I mill 6, I find Chill, I find Vengevine, Amalgam, Narcomoeba, bring it back. Amalgam, very good, 6 cards. My opponent was forced to use Endurance immediately, removing the Grist, which was okay by me. I didn't want to play anything. I wanted to hold the suppliers for next turn to maybe try to trigger Vengevine again. And they just attacked, played the Hapacha, no third land for them, which was very good. So I find the Vengevine with my supplier, play the second supplier from hand, bring back Vengevine, mill 3 more cards, getting rats, getting gaze. Rats pretty cool at this situation, really needed to discard some of the guys from the hand. Yeah. Okay, so my opponent just plays the Geist and decides decides to concede again. They didn't have a third land, obviously, which was definitely a problem for them. So that was it. That was a quick games against Yagmat opponent, and we'll save the defeat for the last game. We'll watch other ones first. Okay, so I got 2 gazes, which is pretty cool. I can use one, use another one for force if needed. I didn't want to force the module, it's not such a strong card. I really only want to force the hardened scales. Didn't want to play anything here, just wanted to do another gaze. My opponent plays the automaton. Go for the tomb, replay the gaze from the graveyard, bin Vengevine, bin Rotting Rats, keep land on top, play the supplier, mill more cards, then play my Urberglurgoyf, get the Vengevine back, attack for, play the Grey Crawler. I wanted to save the Urberglurgoyf to get the kicker ability maybe for the next turn. Also bring back Amalgam was nice. So they played Ozolit, still didn't want to counter this. I think Ozolit was not very important in this situation. So I would rather go for another gaze, ban Amalgam, ban the Grey Crawler. I really wanted to discard this Vengevine and also trigger the Amalgam. And next turn I can trigger Vengevine again with the Grey Crawlers and Urberglurga from hand, so I just go with everything. I don't care if any of these creatures die. It will just help me get my Vengevine back for the next turn. Didn't want to hold for the gaze here. I decided to keep it for the force. Wanted to have additional damage to finish my opponent in the next turn. So they go for the steerings. I think this was a very important spell. Didn't want them to find, what is it called? The Ravager. So I think it was best to counter this, and they just had the Welding Jar and made 2 tokens fit the module, which wasn't very relevant. So on my turn, I was able to cast the Stitcher Supplier, mill 3 more cards, find the Chill for 3 more damage, then cast the Lurgoyf, trigger the Vengevine, and have 4 more power in attack for this turn. So just go in with everything, and that's lethal. My opponent concedes. That was it. Game 1 against Scales. They're having just a very tough time playing against this deck, and Sideboards plan. My sideboard plan was Leyland with Voids because it stops their modular abilities. It's very good against them. Also, Ancient Grudges, Havar Mites are all very good. You can see that I removed the chills here, removed the Force of Negations. They're not very good. Their main spells are creatures, so I bring in subtleties. Decided against the fatal pushes and had 3 mites in. So a lot of sideboard guards for this matchup, and Witterbloom command was and the Haver Might were just so good here. First might on Urza Saga, then next turn Witterbloom command destroying the scales, getting back the land from the graveyard, just so good, and destroy scales, get back land, replay the gaze immediately, try to find Narcomoeba to bring back. I decided to keep both the second command and Hedron Crab on top. I needed a crab for the next turn to bring back Vengevine. So my plan was to cast Rotting Grass, obviously, discard Vengevine from my hand, then play the crab, trigger both Vengeance, and have Witterbloom command on top of my deck. Witterbloom command next turn, killing the Graveyard Hate they get of the Urza Saga, and also getting me the land in the process for the Hedron Crab. It's just so good, unbelievably good. And yeah, so just it was just overperformed in this matchup. Draw both of my Witterbloom commands I got in from the sideboard, and they were just really paid off. My opponent found the Gravedigger's Cage. I was in a good position, but definitely it was very important to find this Witterbloom command here. Also got the Narcomoeba in the process. On the field, mill 3 cards, get the gaze in the yard, find, bring back land from the graveyard, uh, trigger the Hedron Crab 2 times, and my opponent concedes at this point. So just second Witterbloom command was too much. Definitely great card for this kind of matchup. Yeah. Very good choice. Very good choice. And that's it. That was second win against very easy wins, really against Scales. Okay, we will watch the fourth win. It was a one-lander with no gaze, so I had to really had to mulligan this. My opponent played Birds of Paradise, which is a very good sign for me to play the Hedron Crab immediately. When your opponent plays Forest Birds of Paradise, there's a small chance they have a removal, so it's pretty safe to jam Hedron Crab on turn 1. And in this kind of matchups, my plan is mostly just to jam Hedron Crab on turn 1, play the Urborg Lurgoth on turn 2, but in this situation, I got a second Hedron Crab and really wanted to maximize their disabilities. I got Amoeba from the graveyard, triggering the Amalgam. Okay. Unfortunately, it was kind of hard for me to trigger the Vengevine. Just didn't have creatures, but I had a lot of these fetches, which was very good for my 2 crabs. And I think it's very important to fetch with the abilities on the stack, so you don't mill the land you want to find. And I got multiple creeping chills here, got Wander into the graveyard. Wander is so good in this matchup. All my creature now fly, and damage is getting through, and it's just so important. My opponent probably F6 or something, because they didn't play Chord in response. They could have find 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 3 mana creature, which could be endurance or whatever. They didn't find it, and it was probably misclick or something. But yeah, definitely that didn't help them. But I was in such a good position anyway. Played my 13-14 Urborg Lurgoth casually, then Gravecrawler to trigger both Vengevines, and my opponent definitely concedes at this point. Okay, so game 2 on the draw. Yagmot definitely not easy, but we have ways to definitely to also beat it with this deck. So this deck is a bit slower than you're used to seeing in Hollow Wine. So in a lot of these situations, you will just go. Turn 3 is very important for this deck. Also, turn 2 obviously can be good if you have the Crab and Stitcher Supplier. But when you don't, in a lot of these situations, you will just go Rotting Rats on turn 2, discard some Amalgam Vengevine from your hand, then prepare for a very good turn 3, which is kind of a turn slower than the Temur Hollow Wine variant, but still pretty strong. This gaze is just give this deck very, very good, strong mid game and also late game, really. So my opponent plays just a Liberator. I expected them to. This was very important. I expected them. I knew they were holding the Endurance. It was pretty obvious. So I decided to just not play anything and kind of wait for them to not play Endurance. But it was a mistake. I wanted to hold for the Gaze, and but it was a mistake. I should have played the Supplier on my first main phase, because I milled into the Narcomoeba, which wasn't really important, but my opponent was kind of greedy, didn't want me to get Narcomoeba into the field, so they played Endurance in response, and then I played my um, Subtlety to get all 3 Vengevines back, and if I decided this earlier pre-combat, I would get all 3 Vengevines to attack my opponent in combat. I also decided to do the gaze thing in response. So I put a Hedron Crab on top of my deck with Water Grave in hand, milling 3 more, which means milling 3 more cards. My opponent got Shardred, sorry, Yagmoth, but they disrupted for Shardred. Yeah, Shardred was actually very good, gaining a lot of life for my opponent. They got Blood Artist, 0 cards in hand. I just played the Creeping Chill and just attacking for with Narcomoeba, no good attacks at this point, trying to find something to trigger the Vengevine. I mill a lot more cards, but just no luck. Didn't find anything. Mill 6 is pretty good, but just didn't find it. And my opponent has the infinite combo here, and that was game. My opponent just had a better draw, so can't really do anything about that. Okay, so game 3, we're keeping very good hand. This is a typical hand when you plan to go turn to grab into Stitcher Supplier, hopefully find the Vengevine. So I go for the Watery Grave, then Overgrown Tomb on turn 2. So go Crab, Tomb. I always fetch in response on the first ability, and unfortunately no Vengevines to trigger this turn, but I get the Creeping Chill, get the Gravecrawler in, and 1 Gaze. So I go for the Rotting Rats, discard the Vengevine, hoping to do good next turn. I got they had procedure to get rid of the Leyline. Leyline is very good against them. They put 2 amalgams into my graveyard this way. They played their Yagmoth, decided to get rid of my Hedron Crab immediately. And I just played the Gravecrawler from the graveyards, other Gravecrawler from deck, and attack with everything. Triggered both of my amalgams also, so I have very good next turn, pretty close to lethal. In my upkeep, I played Gaze ahead. I leave the Fatal Push on my top, so I just go for the attack, hopefully get some damage through, and then late game in a post combat destroy the Yagmoth. So they really don't have any good plays for the next turn. I just let them block. Just wanted to kill Yagmoth. They really don't have any chance to do anything meaningful next turn with the empty board. So that was it. My opponent concedes. That's it. I can't remember even what the defeat was. But I think it was pretty quick defeat. I just didn't have Okay, so mulligan to 6, keeping mediocre hand, no real enablers. So I didn't want to risk playing my Stitcher Supplier into nothing. Uh, I really had to use the force here. If they get rid of my Stitcher Supplier, it's really bad. So force was actually pretty good here. If I didn't have the force and if they get rid of the supplier, I really wouldn't have anything. This was my only hope to just find the perfect 3 cards or draw Vengevine next turn. So going red's supplier. Okay, that was it. So this was my plan with this mediocre hand. I went for the third land, played the supplier, try to find something. I did find actually Narcomoeba, Vengevine, and Rotting Rat, which was pretty cool. I cast another Rotting Rat, getting the Vengevine back, discarding a card from my opponent's hand. Unfortunately, they had the Oval Chase Daredevil, which was very good for them in this situation. And they were playing the Reanimator, so this Profane Tutor was very good for them, definitely. I binned. Okay, this was okay attack. They decide to block my Stitcher Supplier. I didn't want to play second creature in case they kill my Vengevine somehow. So I played the other Grey Crawler post combat, and my opponent puts Atraxa into the field. And it was still not over. I had a lot of damage on the field. My opponent gaining 7, but they still need to find something for the next turn. And unfortunately, in 10 cards, they found another Goryo's Vengeance. There was a chance for them not finding it, so there's just 4 of them in the deck, really. So they had the ability to go for the Atraxa next turn too. So I didn't. They gained 8 life last turn, so I didn't have any options. Just attack with everything. My draw wasn't very good, so that was it. That was game 1 against this Asmo deck, mono black Asmo deck, Atraxa Reanimator. It was pretty close actually for deck for a hand that's low. It was definitely one of the slowest hand. It was definitely slowest hand in the entire league. I had the gaze on turn 1, then reds on turn 2, and this was the mistake. Oh my god! I just did this too quickly, and I just didn't think enough. And if I just left this might on the top of the deck, I would won the game. Actually, so it was really a punt. And would have drawn the might. This Vengevine would be on the top of the deck. And now next turn, I would obviously play the red, discard the Vengevine. I would have the Goyf might for the next turn. Might would be game winning. It would be able to kill Urza Saga or Cookbook with it, which was their main enabler in this game. So it was just a very bad decision, definitely. Yeah, and now I wasn't able to trigger 2 of my Vengevines. If I just had the might in hand, it would be so good. Unfortunately, misplayed there, a big misplay, big misplay, and I would have easily won that game, and this could have easily been a trophy league too. So just play this too quickly, just didn't think about it enough, and yeah, a very costly misplay, unfortunately, very costly. Just done the gaze ability too quick. Didn't think about needing might to trigger Vengevine together with Goyf. I finally find a way to trigger the Vengevines, and it was almost enough to win the game. Actually, it was pretty good. Goyf was decent, 4-5 to 4-3 hasters there. So still, my opponent didn't have much, just these construct tokens. They go for the spell bomb, remove my rotting rats and Vengevine. And they were just on 2 cards in hand and just 2 lands. They can't even make any more constructs, so it was actually decent for me. I got to refill my graveyard, find another gaze. So I opted to go for the hardcast Vengevine, attack for 4, so I actually have 2-turn clock here, but my opponent has a second saga, finding Shadow Spear, which means yeah, I can't actually attack. But obviously, as you could see, if I just find that Herald Might, this would be a win. So this was a big punt, and this would be a win, and I would have a good chance of doing something next turn. And now my opponent has the Underworld Cookbook thing going on, killing my creatures for free with the 1 large construct token. Just really needed to find the removal here or bust, and it didn't happen. I also played the Gravecrawler for nothing last turn. It was another punt. I should have just leave it in my hand and then trigger the Vengevines again this turn. Yeah, so a lot actually played the entire league pretty well, and in this game I had multiple bad decisions. So it cost as soon as you do. Soon as you misplay, you definitely lose. The mistakes are not forgotten of playing this kind of decks. Definitely. So that's it. That was the entire league. Deck felt very powerful. You could see the only game I lost was big, a big part my mistake, and should have won that match and decide the winner in the game 3. I have a pretty decent sideboard there. Maybe drawing Leyline of the Void in the starting hand would seal the game like that game against Dredge. So it's pretty unlucky. Pretty unlucky. Leyline would be so good against my opponent to draw against the mono black deck, especially Leyline of the Void, Reanimator. With all the Chase Daredevils, they basically can't do anything with the Leyline on the field. And I don't know what their solution for the Leyline is, but yeah, it feels really good. So there was high chance I just missed the trophy with this deck with a very bad, very stupid decision to not leave Havar Might on the top of the deck to trigger the Vengevine with other creature from my hand. Yeah, of course this happens. That's it. I hope you like the list. Hope you like the deck and the gameplay. And that's it for this list. If you like the channel, click subscribe, click like button. Yeah. Definitely play this list in the future. Try to tweak it a bit more and try to tweak it a bit more. But yeah, pretty good so far. Okay. Goodbye.